Hello, this is Ben Television News Roundup, a compilation of major stories in the weekend. I'm Tunde Alabi. Thank you for being part of the program today. Prime Minister Theresa May has appointed retired Judge Sir Martin Mobik to lead the public inquiry into the Grenfell Tower fire, where at least 80 people have now been confirmed dead. The Prime Minister, while speaking at the Prime Minister's question time, reiterated her government's resolve not to leave any stone unturned in getting to the roots of the fire incident.
Cladding from 120 tower blocks across the country in 37 local authority areas had been tested and had failed the combustibility test. Given the 100% failure rate, we are very clear with local authorities and housing associations. They should not wait for test results. They should get on with the job of the fire safety checks, and indeed they are doing that. And they should take any action necessary, and the government will support them in doing that. The Secretary of State, the Community Secretary, has set up an independent expert advisory panel to advise on the measures that need to be taken, which is meeting this week. On the housing offer, 282 good quality temporary properties have been identified, 132 families have had their needs assessed, and 65 offers of temporary accommodation have already been made to families. The payment from the fund that we've been made available, the discretionary fund, those payments continue. As of this morning, nearly £1.25 million of payments have been paid. And additionally, we're giving an extra £1 million to the local consortia of charities, trusts and foundations which have been doing such important work. On the issue of the public inquiry, I do expect this to be able to name a judge soon. As the Right Honourable Gentleman will know, the process is that the Lord Chief Justice recommends the name of a judge. What we want to do is to ensure that as the process is going forward for that inquiry, that the survivors, the families concerned, do have involvement with that, and it's that work that we're currently doing.
Jeremy Corbyn.
I thank the Prime Minister for that answer, but I hope that she's able to stick to her promise of everyone being rehoused within 3 weeks, because at the moment it doesn't look anything like that target's going to be achieved. She, I hope, understands the fear that so many people have living in tower blocks at the present time all around the country. In 2014, the All-Party Fire and Safety Group wrote to the DCLG warning, and I quote, "Today's buildings have a much higher content of readily available combustible material. There have been contradictory messages from the government. Can the Prime Minister give a categorical answer? Is cladding with a combustible core, such as polyethylene, legal for use on high-rise buildings? And was the cladding of Grenfell Tower legal?"
Okay. The situation is, in relation to the cladding, that the building regulations identify the cladding which is compatible with the building regulations and that which is compliant with those building regulations. My understanding is that this particular cladding was not compliant with the building regulations. This raises wider issues, as the House will recognise, and it is important that we are careful in how we talk about this, because there is a criminal investigation taking place, and it's important that we allow the police to do that criminal investigation and take the decisions that they need to take. But there is a much wider issue here, as we have seen from the number of buildings where the cladding has failed the combustibility test, from those samples that have been sent in already from local authorities and housing associations. This is a much wider issue. It's an issue that has been continuing for many years, for decades, in terms of cladding being put up in buildings. There are real questions as to how this has happened, why it's happened, and how we can ensure that it doesn't happen in the future. That is why I'm clear that in addition to the inquiry that needs to identify the specific issues for Grenfell Tower, what happened in relation to Grenfell Tower and who was responsible, we will also need to look much more widely at why it is that over decades, under different governments, under different councils, material has been put up on these tower blocks that is non-compliant with the building regulations. There's a very wide issue here. We need to make sure we get to the bottom of it, and that's what we're going to do.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Mr. Speaker, last Thursday, the Prime Minister told my right honourable friend, the member for Leeds Central, that she would make the results of the Grenfell Tower cladding testing public within 48 hours. And I'm not sure if she's actually done that with her statement today. Yes, as of yesterday, and the Prime Minister just confirmed this, 120 high-rise blocks across Britain have had fire safety tests and failed them. What timetable has the Prime Minister set for such tests to be completed, including on schools and hospitals in every part of the country? And what plans does she have to compel the testing of high-rise buildings such as private sector office blocks and hotels, which may also have compostable cladding material on them?
If I can just say to the right honourable gentleman, what I said last week in the statement was that my understanding was that the police were going to make a statement about the issue of the cladding material within 48 hours, and I think the police then did make a statement about the position. In relation to the test, my message is a very simple one. As I said in my answer to his first question, what we're saying to people is this is not a question of waiting for the tests. Don't wait until you've got a sample in and you know what the result of the test is. So far, 100% of the samples that have come in have proved to be combustible. So work on the assumption that you should be doing the fire safety checks now. That's what we're telling people to do. We know that parts of the private sector are also doing their work in terms of fire safety checks. But my response to all those who have buildings that are covered by this is do the fire safety checks with the fire service, take any measures that are necessary to ensure fire safety, and the government will support you in doing that.
Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn has said the 40% cuts to local authority budget will always come at a safety price, resulting in incidents as that of the Grenfell Towers.
When you cut local authority budgets by 40%, we all pay a price in public safety. Fewer inspectors, fewer building control inspectors, fewer planning inspectors, we all pay a price. And, Mr. Speaker, those cuts to the fire service have meant there are 11,000 fewer firefighters. The public sector pay cap is hitting recruitment and retention right across the public sector. What the tragedy of Grenfell Tower has exposed is the disastrous effects of austerity. Mr. Speaker, this disregard for working class communities, the terrible consequences of deregulation and cutting corners, I urge the Prime Minister to come up with the resources needed to test and remove cladding, retrofit sprinklers, properly fund the fire service and the police so that all our communities can truly feel safe in their own homes. Mr. Speaker, this disaster must be a wake-up call.
The cladding of tower blocks did not start under this government. It did not start under the previous coalition government. The cladding of tower blocks began under the Blair government. The right honourable gentleman talks about local authority resources and talks about changes to the regulation. In 2005, it was a Labour government that introduced the Regulatory Reform Fire Safety Order, which changed the requirement to inspect a building on fire safety from the local fire authority, which was usually the fire brigade, to a responsible person. The legislation governing fire safety in tower blocks this was commented on by the Lakanal House report into that fire. It criticised that 2005 order, which had been put in place by the Labour government.
Order. The Prime Minister's answer must be heard, and it will be. Prime Minister.
And laws which took effect in 2006 ended the practice of routine fire service inspections, passing the responsibility to councils. That is why I say to the right honourable gentleman, this should be an issue that across this House we recognise is a matter that has been developing over decades. is a matter that has occurred under governments of both colours, under councils of all political persuasions, and is something which I would hope we would say we should come together and ensure that we get to the answers of why this has happened over many years, what has gone wrong, and how do we stop it from happening in the future.
The number of cases related to Zika virus have considerably reduced around the world since 2016 when the outbreak was announced. There has been no report of new Zika virus-related issues in 2017. The development has allowed doctors, researchers, and health workers to concentrate on treating children with microcephaly, a disease caused by Zika-carrying mosquitoes.
Arthur is one of the more than 2,000 Brazilian babies with microcephaly caused by Brazil's Zika virus outbreak. Doctors say his brain is developing much more slowly than other children his age, and his mother has had to quit her job to care for him. But doctors also say that therapy is improving Arthur's chances to live a full life.
First, we learned that it's not just microcephaly, which is the tip of the iceberg and perhaps the most serious neurological alteration. We identified many other changes that can be related to infection by the virus during pregnancy. And the other thing we have noticed is that despite the seriousness of the affliction, these children are developing well. They are able, with the right stimulation, to live well during their first year.
Researchers were worried that Zika would return this summer, but so far the number of cases is down everywhere.
Here is where we normally receive new cases. This year, we have not been given any new cases. We have had no cases of Zika or other mosquito-borne diseases, neither Zika, chikungunya, or dengue fevers.
A drier than normal summer and natural resistance may also be helping keep Zika numbers down.
It is possible that a great epidemic did not take place in the big cities that had it in 2015 and 2016 due to the fact that a great part of the population already had antibodies, which makes transmission more difficult and does not create an epidemic.
Whatever the reason, Brazilian health authorities welcome the fact that new cases of Zika are down by 95%, as well as the microcephaly associated with the virus. For babies like Arthur, Zika and microcephaly will always be with them. But Arthur's mother hopes for the best.
I believe Arthur will do everything. He will play ball. He will have a relationship. I know an 18-year-old girl who has microcephaly, and she is the first model in the world with microcephaly. She inspires me very much.
The Brazilian government is working to expand services and financial support for children and the families affected by Zika and microcephaly.
U.S. President Donald Trump and victims of criminal migrants have asked for tougher sanctions to stop the activities of foreign criminals in the U.S. President Trump met with relatives of Americans who were killed by foreign criminals ahead of two immigration bills currently at the House of Representatives.
The testimony given by victims' relatives was devastating.
My son Joshua was 18 years old, and in November of 2010, he was systematically tortured, brutally beaten, murdered, and then his body set on fire after death from somebody who shouldn't have been in this country.
This killer had been deported 4 times. He had a 15-year rap sheet. Violent, burglaries. The gun that he used to kill my son was acquired, and we now know, in a burglary 2 weeks prior to this. And he was just out fun shooting.
My daughter, Christy Sue Pina, she was murdered, she was strangled, stabbed, raped, sodomized. Her nude body was thrown in an artichoke field in the middle of winter. The person that did this, back in '87, he had kidnapped another 14-year-old girl. He tortured her.
In most cases, the relatives pointed out their loved ones would still be alive if their murderers had been jailed or deported. Trump said the law enforcement is working fast to remove alien criminals and gang members out of the country.
Bad people, and we've gotten many of them out already. You know, we're pretty much at the 50% mark. We're getting them out as fast as we can get them out. We're freeing up towns.
Many Americans have opposed Trump's tough stance on illegal immigration, calling it divisive, discriminatory, unconstitutional and bad for the U.S. economy.
Together, we are going to go into this court and tell the judge that this law is discriminatory, and we reject that. That this law will make our communities less safe, and we reject that. That this law will lead to families being needlessly torn apart, and we reject that.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement Director Thomas Homan told reporters Wednesday that no illegal immigrant should be comfortable in the United States.
We got to dispel this notion that you can violate the laws of this country and hide, and that's okay.
The Trump administration says tougher immigration laws are needed to close the loopholes that criminal gangs use to smuggle drugs into the United States, recruit new members, and pillage American communities.
Meanwhile, China has been declared one of the world's human trafficking offenders. The findings are contained in the U.S. annual report on human trafficking released by the U.S. State Department. 23 other countries were also listed as the worst offenders, including North Korea and Syria.
Human trafficking is modern slavery, a multi-billion-dollar criminal industry that denies the freedom of estimated 20 million people around the globe, according to U.S. officials. Notable in this year's Trafficking in Persons report, the State Department's downgrading of China to the level of North Korea and Syria.
China was downgraded to Tier 3 status in this year's report, in part because it has not taken serious steps to end its own complicity in trafficking, including forced laborers from North Korea that are located in China.
The determination to downgrade China's ranking is seen as the first major reprimand of China's human rights record by the Trump administration, a move that Beijing has denounced. Washington says this report is meant to spur change for the better. At Tuesday's release of the report, 8 men and women from around the world were honored for their efforts to make a difference in the global fight against modern slavery, including Boone Mosby from Thailand.
We are here because of the hard work and teamwork of many heroes. In the end, when facing the evil of human trafficking, we are all confronted with a choice: do nothing or do something.
U.S. officials, including President Trump's daughter Ivanka, on Tuesday urged authorities in other countries to not turn a blind eye to the crime of human trafficking.
This year's report emphasizes the responsibility all governments have to prosecute human traffickers. It also provides an opportunity for countries to see how others are fighting human trafficking and to adopt the most effective strategies and tactics while renewing their own resolve in the struggle.
Countries listed as the worst offenders can be penalized with sanctions, barring them from participating in cultural exchanges with the United States.
Developing countries will be benefiting from technological revolution to help them appreciate the value of modernization. There are several people around the world who still live without clean water, basic health care, and electricity. However, with new technological innovation springing up, a new form of development is guaranteed.
We often forget that in many parts of the world, people still prepare their daily meals in a highly inefficient and polluting way. But fires can burn more efficiently and with less smoke if they get enough oxygen. The stove, designed by BioLite, creates enough electricity to power a small built-in fan.
The fan force feeds oxygen onto the fire through these air jets, which are inside the combustion chamber, in order to make sure that there's enough oxygen in the fire where it's needed to completely combust the fuel and eliminate the smoke.
This invention was one of the 3 finalists in this year's competition organized by the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, or ASME, which believes in promoting inventions that have a positive social or environmental impact.
ASME has 150,000 members around the world, so our key value and why we like working with these guys is because we can connect them to experts in the space that can help them on their journey of taking hardware to market.
Keeping food fresh in warm climate areas is another problem for people living without electricity. A low-cost collapsible cooler that runs on water was another prize-winning invention.
You open this flap and you put water inside, and the water comes down into the walls all around it. And that water works the way that we cool ourselves naturally, through sweating. So the water sweats out from the fabric, and the net effect is the inside of the container, which is over here where you put your vegetables, becomes cold.
This year's competition also included a number of affordable medical devices aimed at addressing the lack of access to health care. Many poor countries do not have enough eye doctors to test all the patients with vision problems and prescribe correctional glasses. A portable device called QuickSee can measure a patient's diopter in seconds and does not require any special training to administer.
You simply have a patient look into the device for 10 seconds, you push a button, it measures their eye, and at the end some numbers will be displayed, which are the same numbers that are used for an eyeglass prescription.
Each year, ASME holds similar events in India, Kenya, and around the U.S. At each location, winners share $30,000 and get help promoting their inventions to potential investors.
And with our report, we conclude the news roundup for this day. Thank you for being part of the program. I'm Tunde Alabi. Enjoy the rest of your week. Bye. As part of our continued efforts to reach the African and other ethnic communities in the United Kingdom with greater impacts and create the platform to hear your silent and unheard views in this hugely growing community in the United Kingdom, our channel, Ben TV, presents to you another live current affairs television program. Our focus on the program is to review and discuss issues around the diaspora community in the UK. The program offers you that unrestricted voice on issues affecting you in the UK. Join us live every Monday at 10 a.m. to 12 noon. Another business segment of Dialogue in Diaspora, 2 to 3 p.m. every Monday. But guess what? You know you can be part of the program. Just send us an email at bentelevisionuk@gmail.com. Dialogue in Diaspora, your voice, your opinion on our TV.